Justin, welcome to Combos Court, man.
Thank you, my friend. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Of course. So it seems like the Knicks will not get Giannis in any kind of deal right now. With that said, what do you feel like the biggest problem with this New York Knicks team is that nobody's talking about?
Well, I don't know if I mean, people were talking about this last year, but like to me, the biggest issue is the Brunson and Cat defense. That's
100%.
that's the issue for me. Like the offense, Mike Brown has unlocked the offense. You've seen that. The offense is number 2 in the NBA this year in terms of efficiency, points per play, whatever the metrics say. They're number 2 to Denver. So their offense has been great, and they haven't had OG, now for a few weeks. They haven't tailed off at all. Deuce has stepped in. By the way, I'm the one who said Deuce should start from the beginning of the year, so I'm going to pat myself on the back for that. But he's stepped in and done great. The offense is not the issue, right? Like the defense has always been the concern for me. Even last year, it's still the concern for me because obviously those two guys are really good offensive players, and Jalen's, one of the best players in the NBA. But when you're head of the snake and your last line of defense are the 2 worst defenders on your team, can you win like that? Now, I'm not saying you can't. We haven't seen that. It's not been, Cat's been in the Western Conference Finals and then the Eastern Conference Finals back to back. The Knicks don't blow game 1 last year. They're in the finals, in my opinion. So, in the Pacers series. So if you look at that, could they get there? I'm not saying they can't, but that's what concerns me the most. I think that's really the main concern, is that.
I think if you're looking to win a title, it's a huge flaw with those two because, when the Knicks start losing, people look at the coach. Obviously, they fired the coach last year. People start talking about Mike Brown. But with those 2 players are your 2 best players, I don't think you could win a championship, Justin. I just don't think you could do it. I don't care who your coach is.
Yeah, I mean, that's definitely a thought. Like, I'm not in that court yet. You're in Combo's court. I'm not there yet. I'm in the practice court right now. I'm not in the actual main court yet. I don't think that's impossible yet. I just, now we've seen a sample size, right? Like, and we've seen last year to this year. I would kind of say this. This is a brand new coach with a brand new system, right? So we've still got to give them time. They're only 20 games into the season. This is like playing a different sport, the system they're playing this year from what they played last year. Like, if we're just being honest. Last year was primarily ISO ball, that type of pick and roll ISO ball. This year is ball movement, player movement. It's so much different. So and obviously the defensive coverages are different as well. So I think we got to give them another 20 games before we can really say, okay, this isn't going to work. But I think what you're saying is you're telling me you don't think Cat can win a championship. That's basically what you're saying. Because Brunson, you're not telling me Brunson you don't think could be the best or second best player on a championship team, I'm assuming.
Well, if Brunson is your best player, your second best player, your third best player, your fourth best player, all of them have to be great defensively.
Okay, so that's your point.
You can't have another guy playing 40 minutes that can't anchor defense as your big.
And the problem is they need him on the floor for offense. Right, so you
100%. He's your best. He's your second best player.
He's your second best player, and he's such a good floor stretcher as well. And he's really a great fit for Jalen offensively. So it's like if you take him off the floor, then your offense suffers, and then if you put him on the floor, then your defense suffers. And the other issue is I don't love the big lineup all the time, so I don't think that's the solution. I think against some teams it'll work, but the problem is when he plays the 4, it takes him off the offense. It takes him offensively out of what he does best. Because what he does best is guarded by a center. He could take him off the bounce or pop out for 3. When he's guarded by a wing player, which is what he is when he plays the 4, he's relegated to a post-up player. We saw that last year down the stretch. And that's not really where he's going to excel on offense. So it kind of defeats the purpose of him being out there. So defensively, they're better in ways. But then when you play smaller teams, him and Mitch can't stay out there the whole time guarding the perimeter and doing that. So, and another thing, Mitch is not going to be able to play 30 minutes anyway. So he's going to play 20 minutes. So, like, he's going to be out there for stretches, and he's effective in those stretches. But that's not going to be the solution. They're going to have to play big minutes with Cat at the 5. If they're, don't you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think there's all kinds of weird problems with the roster construction, even though they're top 4 or at least all-star level talents, right? And obviously JB's playing at MVP level, Cat all NBA level. But then you got like the Josh Hart, Mitchell Robinson thing where if Josh isn't hitting jump shots, those two aren't really playable together. Then you got the defensive thing with Cat and Brunson. And I think it'll all come back to the coach, but I don't know if these are solvable problems. That's my thing.
I don't disagree with you. I don't think I'm not ready to conclude anything yet. But what I will say, I was someone
Well,
who wanted.
you're a hot take guy. What's up with you, Justin?
I am a hot take guy, but I'm not dumb. Okay, so I'm not going to come out. I got friends at the Garden. I'm in the arena all the time, so I can't be acting crazy out here.
That's a real thing, though. Like when it's a different kind of thing when like you've actually had interactions with people or you actually interview somebody and then you start having opinions. But I don't care who I interview. I'm telling you how I feel, Justin.
I'm always gonna be honest, but I also got to look at it like the team has only been together for 20 games this year with this new coach and new system.
Yeah.
So, and they did go to the conference finals last year. Even though I think the Boston series, that you want a hot take, it was the luckiest series in the history of sports. Okay. If they played that series another 100 times, the Knicks would lose 99 out of 100. That's my opinion. I think if they lose either of those game 1 or 2, they lose the series. That's how, to me, how much better Boston was. But you have two of the flukiest games. Well, the whole playoffs was fluky with Indiana and the Knicks. But those two games 1 and 2, which if you played them 100 times over, the Knicks would lose 99 out of 100, both games. If they lose either one of those games, I still think they lose the series. And if you look at it just objectively, they outplayed Boston for a game and a half total in that series. Half of game 4, remember they were down 15 at the half in game 4. Half of game 4, which that was their best half of the series, and then game 6 without Jason Tatum. So the rest of the series, they got, Boston choked in games 1, 2. I give the Knicks all the credit. Listen, they came back. You got to give them credit. McHale was great, but you're not winning games down 20 on the road going into the fourth quarter. If you look back in history, that just doesn't happen. That's not a recipe for success. So to me, and I'll double down on that. You want the hot takes, I'll give them to you. The Detroit series, they were also lucky to win because that Tim Hardaway play, if he gets a foul, which he was fouled, and the Pistons win that game, that's a 2-2 series, and that series is completely different. Plus, the Knicks came back in game 1 down 10 in the fourth quarter of that game. And if they lose that game, they're down 2-0 in the series. So now, I'm not saying they didn't deserve to win. You give them credit, they won. But that's not sustainable stuff to go win playoffs year after year. So I look at this team, which is why I wanted the coach gone. I was one of the people who wanted the coach gone. I thought it was time for a change. Tibbs did a great job changing the culture. He did that. The Knicks were nothing when he came on. He obviously did a great job. But to me, he's the type of coach doesn't evolve with the times. And when you have a coach that doesn't evolve with the times, you can't win championships, in my opinion. That's just my take on it. I think your ceiling is capped. He gets them to play hard. He runs them into the ground, and that's it. And he doesn't know how to coach a 2025 offense, and that's going to hurt you in the playoffs. And, you look at coaches in other sports. Andy Reid is a great example of evolving with the times. His offense has evolved so much from when he had Donovan McNabb in Philly, right? So that's how you win. You don't win coaching in 2010 and 2025. You don't win big like that. So to me, I was in favor of getting rid of him. I want to see how Mike Brown gets this team to play when they're fully healthy, how they get to play as the season goes on. Remember, they're still 14-7. Right? They had a worse record last year at this point. I know they haven't beaten, they've beaten whoever plays on Combo's court. That's who they've beaten on the road this year. Okay, we know that. The Nets, the Mavericks without half their team, we know who they've beaten. But let's see how the season goes with that. I don't want to make any statements, but I'm more in the camp of, do I think they're going to win a championship with this team? I don't think they're beating anyone in the West. So I think they could get to the finals because of what the East looks like this year. But if Tatum was healthy, they would never get to the finals. That's kind of my take on it.
So do you feel like this team should make a move since you don't feel that they could beat a team in the West? And this would probably be their biggest opportunity seeing how the East is, if that makes sense.
Of course. I think you're talking about for Giannis specifically, right?
Anything. Move. Yeah.
I mean, I'd always be open to
Giannis would be the greatest player to ever wear a Knicks uniform, but
no question.
I'm saying anybody, though, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, look. I'm always looking to make. I would treat it like my fantasy teams. All right, like I'm always looking to make moves. I'm always open to making moves. And I won 2 leagues last year. I'm in first in all 3 this year. So I'm always looking to make moves. if it betters my team. But the Knicks don't have a ton of flexibility because of the moves they made last summer, right? So that they're in a situation where it's like you got to make the right moves if you're going to make a move. Like Giannis, obviously, if I can get Giannis, I'm going to figure it out from there. It's Giannis. Now, am I concerned about his lower body injuries the last few years? I can't say that I'm not. But, 31 years old, 7-footer, guy who plays like that, those injuries, you worry about that over time. But it's still Giannis. And I think if you can get Giannis in any deal that doesn't involve Brunson, which they wouldn't trade Brunson anyway, as we know.
Would Brunson be untouchable for you?
Yes, it would be the most asinine trade the Knicks could ever make for multiple reasons. And
even straight up, you wouldn't trade Giannis for Brunson.
Not in Snowball's hell chance, because you got to look at it this way. Look what the Mavericks did trading Luka. Brunson almost has that stature. He almost has that stature. No, wait.
One thing, we cannot compare Brunson to Luka. We can't.
Comparing the fandom of the fans, you got to look at it past basketball. You know what I mean? It's not just basketball. This is a guy who makes money for the arena. Fans go to the stadium just to see him play. They're in love with this guy because he's turned the team around. He's become a New Yorker. If you trade him, there will be riots in the streets. And then if you don't win on top of that, it's not going to work. So to me, the idea would be pairing those two guys. That's what you'd want to do. Other than that, I think then you're just running on a treadmill. So I think you got to look at not just basketball. Is Giannis a better player than Jalen Brunson? Of course. Giannis is a top 3 player in the league. He just goes 30 and 10 and 5 every year, so we take him for granted. He's a top 5 player he's a top 3 player in the league. He's probably behind Jokic. And honestly, you could argue him or Shea, in my opinion, in terms of all-around player.
Yeah,
I would put Jokic 1, and then you could argue the rest. Of course, he's better, but you got to look at it from a macro and a micro perspective. With Brunson, he is untouchable from a Knicks fan and a Knicks stadium. They put this guy's dad on the staff. This guy is not a regular player.
Well,
you know what I'm saying?
His dad played for the Knicks, to be fair.
But he's on the staff. They changed coaches. He's still on the staff. He's the only coach still there. There's a reason he's not. If that was Deuce McBride, you think his dad's still on the staff? Hell no. Right? So you got to look at it. This guy runs the team. He is the franchise right now. And I have no issue with that, but you're not trading a guy who's the franchise.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on CP3 getting Clippers in the middle of the night? I don't know if the decision was made in the middle of the night, but CP3 definitely posted about it in the middle of the night.
I think it was made in the middle of the night, and I think that's the most diabolical-ish I've seen in a long time. Like, I think no matter what, even if he's the biggest problem and you need to get rid of him, right? You could wait till the guy wakes up and gets a cup of coffee at least. You know what I'm saying? Wait till he gets up, goes to his local, Starbucks, gets himself a macchiato, sits in his chair, and then you give him a call, or then you show up at the Starbucks and knocking on the door. You showing up in his hotel room on the road at 3 o'clock in the morning, that's crazy work. You know what I mean? Like, that to me is that shows you everything you need to know about an organization. And players see this throughout the league when they're like, all right, do I want to play for this team? Do I not want to play for this team? When you treat your top players or guys that are legends like that. And Chris Paul, look, he rubs some people the wrong way. We've heard that over time, right? He's a very intense, he wants to win. He's that type of guy. But he's one of your best players. He might be your best player in franchise history. You might want to retire his number at some point since you have 0 retired numbers. So if you're going to do that, I don't think firing him in the middle of the night, so to speak, sending him home is the way to do that. And I don't think that's how you treat your employees, which he is an employee of your team. Wait till the morning. Wait till he gets that cup of coffee.
Yeah, that's a lack of culture because I don't think Ballmer's even thinking about, the history of the Clippers, even though the history of the Clippers is pretty darn bad. He's just thinking about, what should we do right now, not thinking about – like how you talked about Brunson with the Knicks. That's what CP3 is to that Clipper team, and this is what they did.
Yeah, and I think you have to think about, that's what I think most people who give these takes and talk sports, they don't think outside basketball. This is an entertainment business. This is not just a basketball team. This is not your local, at the Y or your AAU team. This is an entertainment business, right? So you're thinking about guys that, these are your franchise players that bring people to the stadium. Go ahead. I know you want to say something.
No, I was actually, it kind of sparked something in my brain about you saying this is an entertainment business, and somebody actually sent me your Keontae George video. And I think the thing is that people don't trust the league anymore. They don't look at it as an entertainment business. They look at it like how they do in Europe with EuroLeague. Obviously there's corruption everywhere, but I think that they're not really looking at it as entertainment, and they're looking at it as this is a sport. And then obviously there's a lack of trust with things like that going on.
Yeah, and I think, listen, once these sports leagues got in bed with the betting companies, this was going to happen. You know what I mean? Like, there was no way around it. I thought for years they always wanted to, but they were worried about what it was going to look like. And, listen, if Tim Donaghy was around today and that thing happened today, that would have been a disaster. Because if you go back and look at some of that stuff with the old Lakers-Kings games in the early 2000s, that don't look good.
Well, you don't think what's going on now is a disaster, some of the things?
No, it is, but at least now it's getting reported and people are seeing it and people can go and look on social media and figure out for themselves. Back then, there was no social media, so they could just sweep it under the rug. So now it's worse for the NBA now, right?
Yeah.
It's worse for the NBA because now it's in public. It's on Broadway, as we say, and you're seeing everything in front of you. And I think, yes, like, look, they're making hand over fist. They're making money with these betting companies. You know what I'm saying? And listen, I'm not going to hate on the betting companies because I might get a couple pennies from them too. So I appreciate all of it, and I do some gambling myself. But now, do I really think Keontae George was shaving points? I don't, right? But when you look at that clip and you look at he's had 25 plus in every game before that. He then had 30 in the game after that. And then you watch those clips, you're like, and then you see what happened with Terry Rozier, and then you see what happened with all these other things that's gone on, right? It's like, it makes you wonder about it. It makes you think about it. It makes you have to at least acknowledge that this is the world we live in now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the thing. I don't think he was shaving points either, but I do think there's now people looking for this. And when somebody ever has a crazy play, we're going to see more and more videos like that, and that's a problem for the league.
It's a huge problem for the league. And I think, to your point, it's like, the sports is only sports when it's on a level. Right? Like, if it becomes like you don't know if this is really, competition, it becomes wrestling and it's pro wrestling.
Well, do you believe it is wrestling?
I don't. I wouldn't watch it if I believe that. You know what I mean? Like, I don't, but I do think the officials are too involved.
But you believe it's entertainment, but you don't believe it's wrestling.
No, I don't believe it's wrestling from like a corruption standpoint. Like, I don't believe it's wrestling from this is scripted. Is what I mean, right? Like, I don't believe like the NBA is saying, okay, this is who's going to win this series, and this is what we're going to do, and this is how we're going to do it.
Do you believe? Sorry to cut you off, but do you believe that things could get changed along the way, even though it's not scripted from the beginning of the season?
Of course, because now there's so much money in gambling, and the people who are not making the top dollar, who are like, hey, like, I'm going to take $50K or $25K from getting a deal here or doing this here, like with Chauncey or whoever, anything else that's gone on. And we don't know if Chauncey was really involved or how much was going on. But just giving an example, like, we don't know what's going to go on with the guys who don't make as much money. Now, I think the NBA is actively looking for anything suspicious, which I think is you can see these things if it's like, all bets on unders on a prop bet, which I think that's the most suspicious bets you can make are the prop bets, especially unders. I never bet unders because it's not fun to watch unders. I'm not going to watch a game rooting for guys to miss the whole game. I want to watch a game.
Yeah,
that's half the fun of gambling is like, oh, I want to see my guy that I chose go out there and score or make a pass or whatever. So that's the most suspicious part of it. But look, the NBA, the NFL, all these leagues, like, the issue for me is the officials don't get held accountable enough for these calls that they make in huge games like the Chiefs-Bills game last year in the playoffs, right? Like, all these things that happened, you're like, was it a first down? Was it not a first? Now they put virtual measurements in. We'll see what that does. I'm sure something will come up with that too. But these officials, they don't have to talk to the media after the game, right? They just talk to a reporter and it's written, it's sent out. Like, the players have to be held accountable for what they do on the court. Officials don't. That's a problem to me. The officials should have to go up there and say, hey, I blew the call. Or you should have to look at him standing up there by himself and saying, this is why I made the call. This is why I didn't make the call. Because officials could literally, this, in the NBA or the NFL, you make one or two calls down the stretch, that game is completely changed.
100%.
Completely changed.
100%. I mean, you have a song called Bet. Of course you gamble. Come on, Justin.
I do.
Yeah.
I do.
We'll get to that in a little bit. But
yeah.
Now, I said Concanoopel would win Rookie of the Year before the season. It's documented. I said it at Summer League. I also said that Concanoopel is Klay Thompson with a better layup package. Now, I always thought he had a really high floor. You digged into the numbers and a lot of his video, and you made a great video on Instagram. What do you believe Con's ceiling is?
I think actually that's a pretty good comp. I was ready to disagree with you, but I think that's a pretty good comp is the Klay Thompson with a better layup package. And I think if Klay Thompson had come out in today's game, he would have had a better layup package. When he came out, you didn't really have to do that. That's why the game's evolved so much. Hard to compare eras. But he's that type of player, right? Like, he could put the ball on the deck a little more than Klay. I think that's where him getting to the rack gives him the advantage there. I think he's got an all-star level ceiling. At the end of the day, do I think he's going to be a superstar top 10 in the league? I don't think he's going to get that high, but I think he's got an all-star potential where Klay Thompson if Klay Thompson doesn't get hurt, what is he, a 7-8-time all-star probably in his career? I think if Khan and, the Hornets are going to do everything they can to hold him back, because that's what they do with players, as we know, right? Like, they do everything they can to basically put him in the shackles. But if he reaches his full potential, I think he has that type of potential where he's an all-star level player, because I think actually that's a pretty good comp is the Klay Thompson with a better handle.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so how do you feel about Cooper? How did you feel about him going into the season? He's playing better now. I know a lot of people hit me on the DM saying, this guy's not generational. This guy's not great. He's just going to be a very good player. What are your thoughts on all of that?
I watched him a lot at Duke last year, and I was not in the camp of this guy as a can't-miss prospect. I was not in that camp. I was like, I think I see the potential. I think his floor is very high because of his athleticism, his length. He's a smart player. He's never going to be a bad player in the NBA, right? So he's definitely going to be a good starting player, in my opinion. The fact whether he's going to be a superstar is going to come to how much he works on his jump shot. That's what it's going to come down to, and his ball handling too. But how much he works on his overall skill level, because his skill level, to me, is not as high as some of other guys that we've seen come out. And I think that's the difference right off the bat. I think he's got all the intangible, things about it, and I do think he can be that level player. I said to my brother, actually, we were just talking about this yesterday, this is not a good comp in terms of an actual player, but I said Sean Marion, when he originally came into the league, he couldn't shoot. Now, Cooper's a better shooter than what he was at the beginning, but Sean became a really good three-point shooter, but he was a guy who was always going to be active, rebounding, pushing the pace, athletic, good defensively. Like, he was always going to be that type of player. He was always going to be a starting level player. It was whether he's going to become an all-star or beyond. I think Cooper does have a ceiling of, I don't know, generational, but like a number one option on a championship team, but he's going to have work to do. I mean, I don't think it's going to happen this year. I don't think it's going to happen next year. I think it's going to take a couple of years for him to get there.
I think what you're trying to say, and I've been talking about this a lot lately, is that when your biggest weakness is like your ISO scoring,
yes,
it's hard for people to think about you as a great player. But then again, people sleep on those players as well.
Correct.
Like, you think about a Scotty Barnes, a Tyrese Halliburton, a Jalen Johnson, Giannis, even a Cade. Like, Cade is great.
Kawhi.
Well, Kawhi got there, though, with Toronto, but you're right.
No, but I'm saying, like, before, like, when they first came into the league,
right,
those guys you just mentioned, we didn't think of those guys as, oh, these guys are great ISO. They're never going to be, even Paul George, by the way. We never thought this guy's going to be a great ISO scorer, like a bucket getter, a guy I could go to give him the ball, get out of his way. But you could become that. We've seen that happen now over time. And if you have the work ethic, I think that's what we're seeing now in today's game. And Jalen Brunson is a prime example of that. If you have the work ethic and you really want to become that type of player, you have a chance to do it if you put the work in, because now there's so many things these guys have. They didn't have these things 20 years ago. Everyone has a shooting coach from when they wake up out of bed to when they go into breakfast to when they got a shooting coach all over, trainers, diets, everything. They got all these things. So now it's like, if you want it, it's at your fingertips now to become that player.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Brunson fans are always getting at me because I talk about how Cade is better and all that. But I would say this.
I heard that take, actually.
Yeah. I would say that. How do you feel about that?
I disagree. Okay. But if you want me to give you my actual take, I'll give it to you. But I disagree.
No, because we could be here for another 2 hours. That's why I don't. Yeah. We will talk about it another day.
I'll say one thing of why I disagree. It's too small a sample size for me for Cade. Like, he's played 15 games this year, and that's when he's taken his game to this level. Last year, he's like, for my opinion, like Cooper Flagg. He gets rebounds, gets assists, gets points. So he's always going to be a guy that's going to be a good basketball player. Now, is he going to be an ISO scorer, bucket getter, which he was not in the playoffs last year against the Knicks? If he was that, the Pistons would have won the series. So let me see him do it this year. Pistons are off to a great start. And I said this to my brother when he was telling me R.J. Barrett was going to be the next best thing. I don't care what you do in a 15-game sample size.
No, but don't do
Show
that.
me over a full season. Show me a full season of you being that guy. I'm not talking about whether he's good or not. He's a really good player. He's an all-star player. We know that. You want to get into that top elite tier? Show me that over a full season, win playoff games, and hit big shots down the stretch. Then I'll go, he's there. And then I'll start comparing them. Brunson's done it in the playoffs. He's gotten his teams there. He's already done that. Tell me I'm wrong.
You're right in that sense. But I would.
And we're just talking offense, by the way. We know Brunson's not defensively. Cade's a better player. But
yeah, I think Cade is better in every way, but ISO scoring.
But that's a huge part of the game when you're a scorer. You're the number one scorer. That's what your job is.
But the way that Cade could elevate teammates, I think that has a different kind of effect than what Brunson could do. You know,
that's fair.
And then the whole defense thing you're talking about, and he's having a better season, and the stats are similar. And yeah, he's not the scorer of Brunson, but their scoring stats are similar.
I would say this, though.
And the other stats are better.
I got to look. Keep going, because I'm going to look real quick, because I looked at Cade's stats a week ago. He was shooting 43% from the field. I don't care you're scoring 29 points a game. You're shooting 40. This isn't 2001, and you're not Allen Iverson. So you're not getting away with that in this day and age.
Well,
right now he's shooting 40. He's up to 45 right now, so he's gotten a little more. This guy's 6'8", right? 6'7", 6'8". You got to be 48, 49, 50% from the floor, and your efficiency's got to be better. For me to tell you that you're a elite level score, and because it's not like this is James Harden who's shooting 15 threes a game, so his field goal percentage is going to be down, his true shooting percentage is up. Cade's not in that ballpark. So
well, he is getting away with it because his team is the best in the East. And I would also say, you know how Kevin Durant was talking about this is a pick-on league?
Yeah.
Cade is not a guy you could pick on.
No, he's
Brunson
not.
is. And I just like the way I just like the way he elevates his teammates. I feel like if you give him OG, Cat, Mikal,
we can't do that, though. You know what I mean? I love when people do that. People are like, oh, well, Michael Jordan, when he had Scottie Pippen, he didn't win until he got Scottie. We don't know the answers to those trivia questions. You know what I'm saying?
But I also would say that you can't just say, oh, Brunson's better because he took Cade out last year, because it's a team sport.
I'm not saying because he took him out. I'm saying he's better because he's done it in the playoffs year after year. The guy set playoff records for 30-point games in a row. This guy just did this. He had 8 30-point games in a row. He's carrying the team on his back.
He's a better scorer.
2 years ago, they lost OG, Josh Hart, the ball boy, the guy who hands out the water. They lost everyone, and he's carrying the team on his back. So for me, I'm listen. If you're going all-around player, we know Cade's a better defensive player, and that's partially because he's a bigger guy. Jalen's just small, so he's never going to be a great defensive player when he's that small.
Justin, if me and you play one-on-one, I'm not a post player, but then I end up posting you and scoring.
But if we're talking skill, are we talking skill, basketball skill, or are you talking like just game in the NBA?
Basketball player. Like, his skill is just one part of it, right? Like Cat is more skilled than Ewing, but he's not a better player than Ewing, to me at least. I don't know.
No, look, I think this is where I get, like, everyone talks about skill. These guys today are all going to be more skilled than those guys. They just weren't. This wasn't the same game they're playing. This is the evolution of the game.
But you saw my point for the Brunson-Cade thing.
Ewing's a better player than Cat. There's no question. First of all, Ewing was a tremendous defensive player before he had the knee issues, especially.
100%.
So, Ewing is an underrated player all time. That goes without saying, and that's beyond the question. But at the end of the day, he didn't win the big game. He could have. He had a chance. And let's be real, just from, we're not going to get into this, but Olajuwon outplayed him severely in those finals. And, this was a guy, Ewing, they were neck and neck. Who's the guy? And Olajuwon went, goodbye. You know what I mean? That's what happened. The Knicks win that series if Ewing outplays Olajuwon. There's no question. Forget Starks, forget the whole thing.
There's a lot of funny comparisons in the past. They were like saying, is Clyde or Michael Jordan the best two guard in the NBA? They always
you know what the worst thing is like, kids who don't see, like, I'm obviously, I never saw guys like Magic or Bird really. I watched clips, but I didn't see these guys play. It's before my time. But, like, I was very young, but I saw Michael Jordan play. Kids who come up and like, oh, Michael Jordan couldn't play in today's game. Michael Jordan, if in today's game, if he had the advantages that these players have, he'd be shooting threes like Steph fucking Curry. Excuse my language. Because he'd be practicing threes all day long until he became a 40%, 43%. That's the kind of psychotic human being he was. You got to look at the human, not the game. And by the way, he was so ahead of his time. If you airdropped him into today's game with the same athleticism, he'd be the best athlete in today's game. with what he was back then. That's how good of an athlete. He was a freak athlete for that time. Now, skill-wise, he's not as skilled as like a Steph Curry or even probably a LeBron. But these guys, I think if he played in 2025, he would be as skilled, if not more, because he would have worked on it with the advantages, with all the coaches, with all the stuff that he would have been doing. You know, the advanced metrics that we have now, they didn't have that. They didn't care about efficiency in the 90s. They didn't care about that.
Right, you're
no one
right.
cared about that.
Yeah, I mean, even past that, like when Kobe and Iverson used to drop 40,
Same
nobody,
thing.
Nobody was like,
cared. They're like, fire away, pull.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like that was.
Yeah.
And listen, Iverson's the reason I played basketball. Right? He was my favorite player of all time. I'm 5'7". You know, people don't know that on the set. When people see me in person, they always think I'm gonna be bigger. And I'm bigger everywhere it needs to be. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, in the heart, I meant in the heart. That was a comment that didn't need to come out, but I meant in the heart. But at the end of the day, like. Iverson was a smaller guy in the NBA, especially at that time, and he's getting beat up and banged around. He's still coming up, getting up, and doing his thing, dropping 30 a game. So he's the reason I played. But if he played in today's game, he would have to be a more efficient player, or he wouldn't be looked at the same way. You know what I'm saying? Like, you can't shoot 39, 40% from the field and expect to be an all-time great player if you're playing in 2025.
Yeah, Jordan or LeBron?
I never pick between these two because people want to kill me when I do. I made a comment that I thought Steph moved ahead of Kobe and Tracy McGrady. I was with Tracy McGrady, and I was at Say Less, the restaurant. My buddy Dara owns the restaurant, and I was there, and me and T-Mac were in the room, and I told him I thought Steph was better than Kobe. He almost ripped my head off, and we had a conversation back and forth. And it was, you know, listen, I appreciated his take. My take was a lot deeper. He put Kobe's defense into it, which is the same argument you have with Cade over Jalen. I get that. For MJ, I think you have to break those things up. LeBron, over the totality of his career, has more accomplishments and is probably a better basketball player when you look at all those things. But if you're looking at just a guy, who would I start my team with? Who would I want on my team to win a championship? It's Michael Jordan. And I don't see how you can go and to me, it comes down, I just told you got to look at the player, not the person, not the player. If you look at both those guys, and there's nothing wrong with either of this, LeBron, especially for most of his career, cared too much about what people thought about him. So in those moments, that Dallas series, those other things, that was all because he had all the pressure and he cared too much about failing than he did about succeeding. MJ don't give a rat's you know what. And he would go out there, whether he missed 50 shots in a row, he would take the next 50. And that's the difference to me between the two players is, and MJ's just an asshole. LeBron's probably a better guy in real life. So I think that MJ's the better winner because of that. And because of that, I'd probably put him a tick because ultimately it comes down to winning. And I don't care what your teammates were. LeBron went to teams. He left Cleveland. If he was in Cleveland the whole time playing with, what's his name, Boobie Gibson, then I would say, okay, LeBron, we got to look. But he had choices. He went to Miami. He went back to Cleveland with Kyrie. He went to the Lakers. Like, he's had great teams. Got 4 rings in 20-something years. And I know he had to play Golden State. I get that. I get you play Steph and KD. MJ never had that type of competition. But MJ's got 6. He's got 4. To me, LeBron had to get that 5th for me to say, okay, LeBron could pass him. So I put Jordan here and I put LeBron there. How's that?
That's good, man. That's good. Justin, great stuff. I saw you were streaming on some platforms, your song Bet. What are you more focused on? I see the viral Instagram content. I see, you know, you're great on mic, by the way, and
Thanks.
You're an artist as well. So what's going on with you? Talk to me.
I mean, like, you know, I grew up a musician, like singing, and you know, I danced a little bit and songwriting and all that stuff, and that was my passion was that, and I also wanted to be in the NBA, but like when you're 5'7", you gotta like, you know, cut your losses at some point. So I went into music because I wanted to be an entertainer, and that's what I loved, and all those things. And especially like, you know, 10 years ago when I started, or a couple more than that, but you had to do that. You couldn't do this thing that we're doing right now, which is content creation and sports, you know, personality. You didn't really have that opportunity to do this and that. It was pick one and go, right? And one thing you don't know, I almost became a sports agent. I was very close to a couple guys on the Mets back in, you know, 15 years ago. I had meetings with a bunch of agencies. I almost did that when I was in my early 20s, but I chose music ultimately. And now I'm kind of focused more on the sports, and I'm focused more on the shot clock and the content. I'm still making music, but my primary focus is on being a content creator. And I look at myself as I'm an entertainer. That's what I do. So
Yeah.
you want me to make popcorn and pop it for you? I can do that. You want me to go on and sing for you? I could do that. You want me to talk sports with you? I could do that. So anything you want me to do, I'll be able to do. I look at myself as a diverse, versatile person, but I'm just focused on, this, because this is, to me, right now, I think it's sad, and I don't want to go too much off on a tangent. The music industry, I think, is in a really bad place right now. And it's very hard for young artists to really make it, because unless you get that 15-second viral moment, no one wants to even have anything to do with you. Because and I get it, and it makes sense, because that's how they're gonna make money. Music, no one just listens to music anymore. They're like, what went viral, and then that song becomes the thing. And that song doesn't even have to be a great song. It could be great for 15 seconds, and the rest of it is trash. And it doesn't. I'm not saying that's all the time, but that's the case. So a lot of these kids who make it aren't necessarily. You don't see the Chris Browns anymore. You don't see the Bruno Mars. Those guys don't exist, because those guys had to put the work in day after day after day after day, get rejected, get songs that didn't work, get this, and keep going, keep going. But they had labels that believed in them to do that, or management that believed in them. Now it's like they want you to do all the work yourself, which is fine. But these kids are like, why am I making hundreds and hundreds of songs to get better as an artist when I just got to get a viral moment? And then I get a band, I get many bands, and then I'm out there, and then I'm a star, right? So it's like, the game has changed. So for me, I'm just not in that place where I care about it like I did, years ago. I love sports. It's always been my passion, and I'm an entertainer. So I look at it like, this is what I want to do. And ultimately, I want to do everything. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's interesting you said that about the viral moments. There's people who could get in their ISO bag, make a tough step back at three, could even dunk. They're 6'10", but they can't play basketball. But they think they're good at basketball because of that clip.
That's true.
That's life these days.
It's like that in everything. And for us even, right? Like, we can talk sports and be the most knowledgeable sports people there is, right? You could be the most.
Yeah, the short form's driving everything, though.
It's driving everything. You could be the best ball knower I know, and like, I feel like I know more ball than most people. I forgot more ball than most people ever knew, right? But like, at the end of the day, if you're not getting those moments where, hey, you're saying things that are going to get people to talk about it, you're not going to be out there.
Yeah, I think some people's issue is they want to show that they're smart and not be entertaining
Correct.
for others.
Correct.
They're thinking about it from a very even narcissistic point of view or a entitled point of view. And that's where I think some people go wrong.
And I think you have to, when you're doing what we do, you have to be very calculated on how you attack it, because you need to say those things that are going to get people to say, wait a second, what is he talking about? Or want to have a debate with you or an argument in the comments. But you also have to say something you believe in.
Yes.
Right? Like, I never say anything that I wouldn't say.
Max
Right now,
Max Kellerman said this yesterday. You have to keep going until you find the contrarian thing that you actually believe, though.
You have to believe it, because if you don't believe it, people are they're gonna figure it out. These people are too smart. Followers, your fans, all these people are too smart. Like, I might exaggerate it to the 100th degree. I might be like, this guy should be put in prison for what he just did, right? Like, I might go overboard, but like, whatever I say, I believe what I'm saying. 100%. I'm not gonna say something, I have no business even talking about this because I don't care about it or I have no interest in it, right? Like,
yeah. I mean, look, I told people Con quadrupled with Rookie of the Year. I really believed in it. Now it's happening, Justin.
And listen, that would be. Let's see what happens at the end of it. He was my favorite player in the draft, by the way, just so you know. I didn't put this on record, so I have no evidence of this. I'm just telling you he was my favorite player in the draft. Yeah. I didn't think Edge Combe was the one who surprised me. I didn't see him being this polished this early.
Right.
The athleticism, you knew, but I didn't see him being this polished. Now, obviously, he's tailed off a little. The season's going to go on. We'll see. But Con was someone, like, I watched a lot of Duke. I'm a Syracuse guy, so I watch ACC basketball a lot. Watched a lot of Duke. He's just a good basketball player, right? Like, and I think coming out of college 2 years ago, and you're seeing this a little more now, I felt similarly about Reed Shepherd. He's smaller than Con.
100%.
So,
but he might be even more efficient shooter in college than even Con was.
Like, I made a comp when Reed came out. He reminded me of a smaller Devin Booker. That's the type of player he reminded me. He's got that mid-range kind of game. He could also, obviously, he's a really good three-point shooter, but he plays in that area. Yeah, and he's not a great athlete, but he's a good enough athlete. You know what I mean? He uses his body well. He uses different things. Got a good handle. So I looked at him as like, I think his ceiling was Book. if everything worked out for him. Now he's not a big – Khan's got a lot more size than him, which obviously helps him.
Yes.
Reed's got that issue, and that's why Reed's not a great defensive player, which is his problem. But you're seeing offensively this year, the uptick. People were calling him a bust last year. I'm like, he didn't play.
He didn't get opportunity.
Right. What do you want? Like, everyone wants these guys, if they play 15 seconds in a game, to have the best 15 seconds you've ever seen. Well, it's not feasible. It's not. The guy was buried on a bench. He got drafted by a team that was in a playoff team.
They were screaming Wemby is a bust at Summer League the year I was there.
Bro, and Wemby is probably taken, I want to think of all the times, I've seen this in history. He might have taken the biggest leap from year 2 to year 3 now?
Well, this is year 3.
From year 2 to year 3, he's probably had the biggest leap of anyone I've seen that early in his career. The beginning of this season, I couldn't even believe what I was watching. I did a bunch of videos that did really well on that, and I was like, I was watching him. I was like, this guy is insane. Now, I would say one thing about that, which we know. You're a Knicks fan, right? I'm a Knicks fan. Those guys that are above 7 feet, we saw it with KP. We saw it with Embiid. We saw it with Yao Ming back in the day. You see it with different guys. It's hard to stay healthy. You get those lower body injuries when you're that size. So it's like now Wemby's got an injury this year. Now, I know that last year was kind of a fluky thing with the blood clot, but he's been hurt now a couple times. And hopefully I'm praying, because I want to see him become, because I think his ceiling is he could be maybe the best player of all time if he played a long career. He's got that level of skill. You could tell he wants it. He's in a good organization.
And he changes everything defensively.
Changes everything, because you can bring in, that's why I think San Antonio, they could bring in a guard to be his second guy or a center, because he could play both.
Right.
He could do both roles, right? So it's like he's just an alien. He's an alien, but KP, when he came in, you remember people were calling him the unicorn, right? KD called him a unicorn. I think he would have evolved into a really good, maybe a number 2 option, maybe even a number 1, but he just got hurt. He got hurt off, and then he became a rim-running center who was a pick and pop, could hit the 3, but more of a shot-blocking 3-point specialist. And could he have been more than that? Maybe. And that's the thing I think you worry about with Wemby is, can he stay healthy over his career? You know what I mean? Is that going to be the one thing for him?
Well, that's the thing. I had actually a piece of content that was shared around a lot. I asked everybody at the Knicks fan TV party, would you trade Cat and Brunson for Wemby? And that thing was out of here.
Listen, Brunson is a very sensitive subject for any Knicks fans, right?
That's why. So here's the contrarian thing I lean into, which I believe. I just think Knicks fans overrate Brunson.
Well, okay? So let's start here. Overrating how? Where do you put him in your rankings in the NBA? What do you think he is in terms of ranked player? Where would you rank him?
Top 15 to top 20.
Okay. So you rank him lower. I rank him at the back of the top 10.
Yeah, I mean, we're not that far off.
Right. But I think that's to me. I feel like I'm an objective person. I think him and Donovan Mitchell are right here. Now, I would put him slightly above because of the playoff, accolades and what he's done there. And I think he's a little better. I think he's a better mid-range player, which I think helps you in the playoffs. I think people always get crazy with the art of the mid-range game is lost. If you watch the playoffs, it's never lost, because that's how you win. Because you can't get to the bucket as easily. You're not going to get those calls, and you're tired from all the minutes you're playing, so you're not hitting threes at the end of games. So if you don't have the mid-range in the playoffs, you're not scoring at the end of games. So for Brunson, he's as good at that as anybody in the league. So I'd put him a little ahead of Donovan. I'd put him anywhere probably from 7 to 10 in that area. I have to go think about it. But Knicks fans just, listen, it's their team. They fall in love with the guy, and he's a great player, and he's been one of our best players in our franchise history. He may end up going down, if they win a championship especially, as the best player in franchise history. I see what you're saying, but they're not going to trade him. You know what I mean? It's like trading their brother. You know what I'm saying? Or their son. I
think when you look at it from a basketball standpoint, and you look at Wemby, and you talked about all the things you just talked about, it's like.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone would trade anyone for Wemby in the league, unless you were Denver, probably, right? Would Denver trade Jokic for Wemby? That's probably the no.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's I haven't seen any. When I watch him play, I'm like,
Bro.
There's nobody better in basketball, I think.
Bro,
Sometimes
it's crazy. It's and like the thing is, he's not a great defensive player either. But because he's 7 feet, it's not that big of a deal. It's not as big of a deal.
And he got a lot better.
And he did get a lot better.
When I watched him in Paris, he was switching out on Patty Mills. He was anchoring. Yeah.
He did get a lot better, especially from when he won his first championship. Like he was really
the 3-point shooting got better too. That was like his one weakness 3 years ago. He's shooting over 40%.
He's like there's no scouting report for him.
100%.
Because what do? You want to make him like teams have said like, okay, we're gonna make him. We don't want to have him getting all these assists because he's obviously got eyes in the side and the back wherever he's got him. He finds guys all over the court, so we're gonna make him score. Well, he drops 50, right?
Yeah.
Like so, whatever you want him to do, he's gonna take advantage of, and he plays like those guys who play at their own pace like that. It's mostly the European players, if you notice that, right? Like the Jokic, the Luka, those types of guys. They're so hard to stop because you never know what he's going to do. You can't speed him up. And I think one of my favorite players to watch over time was Russ, right? Because I just think he played so hard, but he just only knew one speed, and that was always his downfall. Because if you can't slow your game down, then at the end of you can't be going 100 miles an hour at the end of these games. You can't. You need to be able to slow down and play at a pace where people don't know what to do with you. When you become predictable, we know he's going to go 100 miles an hour. Well, eventually, you could stop that.
You know who had a pretty good balance of that, but also playing with pace? Ja Morant.
Look, he's on my dynasty basketball fantasy team, right? And I'm praying that we haven't seen the best of him because he is so talented. And I think in this day and age, and I get into this all the time, like everyone's like, oh, the dunk contest is broken. The dunk contest is broken because you don't have the superstar players who are that type of athlete entering the dunk contest anymore. Nobody cares if Gerald Green wins the dunk. I hate to say it. He's as good an athlete as we've seen, right? We've seen other guys, but nobody cares about him because he's not a star. They want to see Ja Morant. They want to see Ant-Man. They want to see Zion. Those are the guys they want to see. If those guys were in the dunk contest, that thing would be so lit, you have no idea. But no one wants to do that. And now Ja has gotten to the point where is he even at the, people are starting to question whether he's even a superstar player anymore. And so much of this stuff, and you see this in the league now, is here. You got to learn from your mistakes. I'm not going to tell you that I understand what he does, with the gun stuff and all that stuff. That's not how I grew up. I don't, that's not what I know. And I can't speak on that. But at the end of the day, you're a professional basketball player. And when you're a professional basketball player, you get caught once and you meet with the commissioner. And then a month later, you're on IG Live doing the same thing. Now, if this was David Stern, he would have been out of the league. He's lucky Adam Silver's a nice guy. Because David Stern, he would have been back wherever, you know what I mean? He would have been back home playing on the streets in the courts, on the courts in wherever he's playing, right? Adam Silver's a nice guy, and he really gave him a slap on the wrist. But if you want to become he has the potential to become one of the best players in the league. He always had that. But does he want it enough? Right? That's the question. Does he want it enough? What do you think?
Yeah, no, I couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it. I mean, but I always looked at him as a generational type talent. People thought that was excessive, but yeah. You
wanted the Knicks to get him, I'm sure. That's what I wanted. I wanted Zion, obviously, but I was like, yo, if we just get the second pick, we could get Ja. That's really what I was thinking.
And everybody looks at athleticism he has a high IQ too. I mean,
high IQ.
He really plays like a point guard. We're saying CP3 might be the last point guard. He could have been one of those guys, but we'll see. But Justin, thanks so much for taking the time. Appreciate you. Where can we find you on social media and everywhere else?
You can find me at Justin.Morelli on my IG and at The Shot Clock. That's our sports media platform. All over social media, at The Shot Clock on IG, at TheShotClock.show on TikTok, because the person who had that original name, screw them. And then at The Shot Clock Show on YouTube as well. I appreciate you. Thank you so much for having me. As always, you're one of the best in the business, in my opinion. And I look forward to seeing you at the Garden soon and talking more Knicks, obviously.
Definitely. Talk soon, bro.
Thank you.